Welcome to the Total Annihilation Tutorial. You heard that right. Are you ready to become an unstoppable force of destruction? Are you tired of getting steamrolled by your friends and watching your base fall before you even get it going? Well, look no further. In this video, we'll be breaking down the first few critical minutes of the game. You'll learn how to secure resources, establish your command, and turn those early seconds into your first step toward victory. And remember, if you're not playing Total Annihilation, you're probably playing something way less awesome. Now let's get annihilating. And now that we got that out of the way, I was thinking of going deep into resource management in this episode, but I decided I want to cover things in a more general fashion first, in hopes to give an overall idea of what the game is, make it easier for you to get started without watching every single video. And then we'll slowly bring it in, kind of like tuning a cello or a violin. We'll tune the big knobs first so it sounds close, and then we'll go through with the fine tuners and really hammer out the sound. I do want to throw a small disclaimer in before we get too far. I will mainly be talking with the Twilight mod in mind, and while these fundamentals do apply to Total Annihilation in general, and will more or less carry over to other mods, as we go deeper and get more specific into things, even in the early episodes, things will be more mod specific to the Twilight mod. So take any comments about specific units or structures in regards to cost or balance, anything like that, take those with a grain of salt if you plan on using the information for another mod. In the last video, we covered your common controls, some useful hotkeys like marking with your whiteboard key, using your auto-click key to queue up lines of structures or surround other structures with things like Dragon's Teeth. So let's try to cover what to expect within the first few minutes of your game. Your early energy will be obtained from either solar collectors or wind generators. Solars will provide a consistent amount of energy for a higher cost, and will have a bit more armor, where winds will be cheaper. In Twilight, they blow up like popcorn, so you can't build them too close to each other and expect the scout to not take out your entire energy grid. And the energy production will fluctuate depending on the map. With the most recent community patch, luckily, wind speeds should be shown at the top of your screen next to your energy bar. You'll obtain metal by building metal extractors on the metal deposits around the map. This will be your main source of income, so you should always be trying to grab more metal deposits. Different metal deposits will give different amounts of metal, and save for a few small exceptions, you can visually judge which patches are better by how big they are. If it looks big, lots of silver, it's a high-yielding patch. If you can barely see it, there's just a couple dots of silver, it's probably a crappy patch. And there will, of course, be ones in between. Always, always, always grab the bigger patches first. Unless you have literally no other options nearby, this will be your most efficient move early in the game. If your opponent grabs a patch that gives 2 metal a second and you grab one that gives 0.8, they're already out-resourcing you 2-1. Your goal should be to win as many metal patches as fast as you can, as metal is your limiting resource. If you can do this better than your opponent, your chances of winning will skyrocket. As stated briefly in the previous video, you'll start with just your commander, who has the ability to build most of your basic tier 1 structures and defend himself reasonably well against lighter assaults. And in the Twilight mod at least, he will produce 1 metal and 75 energy. I think in Escalation he provides 50 energy, and I think in OTA and ProTA he gives 25. Okay, so you're going to start the games paused, usually. In multiplayer, you put a command in and the game starts paused. pretty much everybody does it. Skirmish, you'll have to pause yourself. And in a skirmish, you won't be able to like pan the camera around with arrow keys, with your mouse or anything. So you'd have to grab you'd have to right click the map or left click the map, depending on your control interface, and drag around to do that. Or you could use the mega map. But I digress. While the game is paused, you don't want to stay paused forever, but use like a few seconds to look around and just take notice of what you have. We have a geothermal vent close. That's 350 energy. We've got some good metal patches up here. Maybe we should grab those first. There's another one right there. We've got a few more up here. We've got some crappy patches. We don't want to touch those yet. Not when we have all these juicy patches, and it's mirrored, so they're going to be on both sides. You might have an ally down here, but, I mean, if you can get to these before your ally, who cares? Take them. Take them and spend the metal better than they would. You also want to take notice of this choke point. It's much easier to hold the choke point, to, control it, than to relinquish control, or I guess relinquish isn't the right word, to uproot somebody else's control of it. You're going to usually, if they put up good defenses, if they control it well, you're going to have to spend more metal to get through it than you would have to just hold it and let their units run into you. And then they feed you wreckage if you do it right. If you can get in there and suck it up. But this map is large, right? There's not a lot of obstacles. There's a couple of mountains. There's no trees. There's no hills. It's large and flat. That means vehicles can be used to their full potential on this map. K-bots can be nice, but ideally, if you do K-bots on this map, you'd want to start vehicles and maybe make a K-bot lab closer to the choke point that you want to hold. So we're going to start vehicles, which means it affects our build order because it's better to start an energy storage when you have vehicles, at least in the Twilight mod, because your first constructor will cost about 3,000 energy. Grab these metal points. We only have 1,000 energy in storage by default, so this is going to bring us to like 7,000, I think. And by the time, if you do it right, by the time you get your first lab done, you'll have about 3,000 energy, 6,000 storage, okay. But you'll have about 3,000 energy, so you'll be able to build it without crashing your eco. You don't have to build that energy storage first, but your energy absolutely will stall. It'll bounce back once it's out, but I think this is just better. And you can do this for K-bots too. You could use this build order for K-bots. The energy storage early, because your commander makes so much energy, makes 75 energy, it just helps you to avoid stalling energy early. But it can give you a false sense of security. Right now, before we're building this wind, because with the one extractor, we were at 75. Or we were using 70 energy. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Because now we're only using 66. But we were only making 75 before that wind, so we weren't really doing enough. So ideally, energy storage, mechs, and either a wind or a solar before your lab is a decent enough build order. You see I have like 3,500 energy saved up. I'm halfway through the lab here. That's really nice. That allows you to do quite a bit. We're going to have about 1,000 energy left over after the constructor, which is a lot better than crashing your energy to get that constructor out. So you can do a couple things. You can push this constructor out with your commander, which I would advise. But if you don't, before the lab finishes, I would queue up like an energy structure or metal. It kind of depends on the map. But I would queue something up before he finishes if you're not going to push out the constructor. That way, you're not wasting any time. So we're going to take him, and we're going to grab those good expansion spots. We're going to queue those up, and we're going to come up here, grab these, and then we're also building scouts to get eyes on this choke point. I'm going to turn the AI off real quick because I'm trying to explain things, and the AI can cheat, and they get special extractors, and they're able to just throw stuff out like nobody's business. and I'm trying to, multitask here. But like right now, we're bringing in quite a bit. We can throw out some scouts. Sorry, not extractors. Or we can do another constructor. I'd like to, since on this map specifically at least, since there's one choke point, I do want to get a few scouts out that'll give me early control of that. Now that he's got this extractor built, I'm going to start another construction vehicle because we're bringing in 10 metal. The lab by itself uses 10.5. So pretty much that means without the commander guarding, we can almost run our lab with no issues. With that in mind, I'm going to grab that 0.8 metal right there, and we're going to start on that. And we're going to have him build energy because we are slowly going to start running out. You can see we're spending about 200 here, 178. We're only making 142. That's with the commander building. But regardless, we're barely staying afloat. So we are just going to get a few energy, a few wins up, a few energy structures. He's gonna queue up a lot. Once he finishes these wins, we're just going to have him start that geothermal. We're going to get a couple up with the commander because he can push them out quick, and we need some energy like ASAP right here because we're still expanding. Ideally, the AI might have a few things up. He's not going to be doing anything, but like instead of leaving all these scouts here, you might even want to do this a little bit earlier with like one of your first couple scouts. You're going to want to see what they're up to over here. We got a decent chunk of metal. We're getting some energy going, so we're going to get another constructor out. We're going to have our commander just start pumping stuff out of the lab for a little bit. And then we should be okay to queue up a few more things, but we'd want to come over here and scout before we build anything other than scouts. We're going to get a few more scouts out just so we have some numbers. More targets to fire at means, you can spread the enemy's fire out. So, like I said, nothing over here. They're not building. I turned them off, but like we've scouted air. So this is one of those situations where like, well, making a bunch of flash tanks isn't going to help me out. So we want to build Samsons. If I just went ahead and queued up 15 flashes and then I came up here and seen they had air, well, that's a waste of metal. So we want to build anti-air. And he's done. So he's actually going to work on fortifying this a little bit. We're going to get a couple of LLTs up, and we're going to do a nanolith platform, which we can build a fort turret from, which will help us fortify that. And this new constructor that came out is going to grab these other patches here. Once he finishes that, to solidify our lead here, we're going to build that K-Bot lab that we talked about. That way we can easily produce units right at the choke point, making it a lot harder for them to come in. I think we've got decent amount of Samsons coming out, slashers. Samsons, whatever the arm one is called. Decent amount of AA, they're Samsons. We will want, just in case, since air can go over the choke point, we're going to keep a couple patrolling down here just to catch air. I mean, nothing's happening because the AI is off, but theoretically, And then we'll want a few up here. And the commander's going to come over here and start to cap this other spawn point, starting with the higher yield patches. We're actually going to ignore that other one, and we're going to get an air plant of our own up so we can easily counter that air. We can probably stop our Samsons there and get some units out to actually raid their base. This scout would be doing something else, but you can see right now we've got eyes, we've got some AA up. We're going to build a fort turret with this nano because that'll be able to throw defenses up. making it much easier to defend. They can destroy stuff. You don't have to be right there. It can build from a distance. See, he's almost done. He's going to start grabbing this geo vent soon, which we'll definitely need because we're spending just a little bit more energy than we're making, which isn't a bad problem to have. If you're like making 470 and spending 490, you've got a ways to figure it out, and we're still building energy. But it's, we're building more metal extractors. We're planning on running 2 more plants, so we're going to need more. And we've been in this game for like 8 minutes. We'll go for like 2 more minutes, and then I think we'll stop there. But like after he does this, what we're actually going to do is start capping this crappy metal. Because, I mean, it's still metal. It's 2 or 3 extra metal, and we're going to need it. Commander, before he finishes queuing up, since we have like a moment of lull, we'll look at some things to grab. Actually, we're going to forget that. We're going to cap that and have him go push that geo out. Get another constructor out because we have more metal to grab. K-Bot Lab is done. So we're going to set another patrol point here. And just pump out some, units. Some AA, some just basic peewees. Without anything actually happening, I'm just building units for the sake of spending metal. But you would be scouting and making informed decisions. So they have defensive lines, yes. Well, maybe you need hammers. Maybe you need some artillery, Do they have a lot of heavy units out, or like riot tanks, anti-K-Bot units? Maybe you want the heavier stuff like a warrior or a Rocco. Maybe they have a defensive line here and you want to build a Nexus to climb over it's transport, and it can climb over the mountains. You have to make informed decisions. I'm just building stuff because we need to spend metal, and you should always be spending metal. I'm not spending enough, honestly. We're going to finish this geo, have our commander guard this air plant, which is now going to build a fighter line at the cliffside to defend against any air that comes over. We have metal. This isn't doing anything, so, build some more tanks. But hopefully, this video is pretty much all we can do in, like, a simulated environment here. But hopefully you get a basic idea of what you should be doing, not leaving your construction vehicle to do stuff like this. Before we go, I guess, like, this is your fort turret. If we hit F11, which we should have did at the beginning of the game. Mine, I include show ranges, so after you go to build some, you can see, let's get rid of our makeshift yellow lines. You can see that it has a circle around. You can build everywhere in that circle. So if I wanted to get some like anti-air on the cliff here, you could do that. If you ever do want to do something like that, use your auto click key. Drag. You want it spacing as little as possible, and you can just go back and forth until you see a green square, and you can do that. That's pro tip. Otherwise, you're just doing this, and you're like, there's green somewhere around there. There it is. You can just do this and find the flat spots where you can actually build stuff. But you can see it builds. Like if I go to build something over here, it can't reach. And it'll tell you in the top left, like, hey, I can't do that. But, you can easily fortify stuff. They have decent build power. 10 metal. They use 10 metal a second, which is comparable to a commander. So they can get stuff up really quick. But we'll have to try to get a real game in one of these times and do a similar thing, or maybe I'll do it against the AI, but the AI is just it can be so dumb sometimes because it can just build so much. But hopefully you learned something. Let me know, comment in the video in the comment section, obviously. Let me know any tips, anything that I could do better. Maybe I'm talking inaudibly. I don't know. Just leave your feedback. Give me suggestions, and we'll work on it, for the later videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.